yeah, so how's the team looking for Big 12?
We're looking good. We're getting excited. Obviously, we have already traveled here, just taking the next couple days to adjust, and we've got a fairly young team. Something unique about BYU is that we have a lot of our team members that leave for 2 years to go serve missions for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so they leave for 2 years and then come back. So it's a little bit of a juggle, knowing some will come freshman year and then leave for 2 years. Some will go right out of high school. So our team is like very quickly evolving from year to year. It's almost like a whole new team on the men's side, at least. So we have
how does that impact like NCAA eligibility?
There is a clause in there that they can pause their eligibility for a religious or military hiatus, I guess, for those 2 years. So it just pauses their eligibility.
Oh wow, I didn't know. Yeah, I actually never heard of the religious. That's really cool. So
yeah.
So Seamus, do you want to do a quick intro, and then I want to dive deeper into this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, great. So welcome to another episode of the Get Out Swim podcast. I'm your host, Seamus T. Quinn. This is my co-host, Xiao Mescalote. And today we're joined by the head coach of BYU swimming and diving. This is Tamber McAllister. Tamber, thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate you thinking of me, and I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so we're just talking about how the system sort of works with the BYU team, where a couple of the athletes either go after high school or throughout their college career on a mission trip. So what I had previously asked was, how did that impact their NCAA eligibility? But I think in swimming, like thinking as a swim coach, like most importantly, like how does that impact like their training? Yeah.
I think it could be real easy to think that it negatively impacts, their progress over time. I actually see it as a huge advantage personally. And the biggest reason is that a lot of these athletes coming out of high school are not fully matured. And I think a lot of times they leave on their mission, and not only are they physically, especially the men, physically finishing their development, but they're becoming smarter people and human beings. And, they're going out there and they have a very strict schedule on their mission. So they learn a lot of skills like focus and dedication and setting goals. And, they're knocking doors, teaching about Jesus Christ and getting doors slammed in their face constantly. So I don't think it's an easy thing for them. They've chosen to give up their lives for 2 years, but they learn a lot while they're gone. And so for the most part, I would say they come back and they're so dialed in and focused, and they know what they want to accomplish, that I feel like I get a more elite athlete out of them based on their focus and their readiness, really.
So how does that impact your recruiting strategy as well? How does that play out?
It does. I have currently on my Excel spreadsheet a 2030 calendar of my roster. So I really have to plan out in the future because everybody's timeline is different too. Some athletes will go immediately after high school. They can go when they're 18. Some athletes choose to come to college for a year first and then go, or 2 years first and then go. So it's really just like a rotating calendar. And it changes. It makes it a little bit hard to balance filling my events totally accurately, especially when they end up changing their minds, because that does happen. But I for the roster cuts last year, instead of cutting kids, we just said, hey, if you're planning on going on a mission, we want you to do it now. And that way, I didn't really necessarily have to cut as many. I just encouraged them, if they were going to go now. So.
And do they have to go do they have to go before college ends, or?
No, they have until they're 25, but I would say most people who want to go, they want to do it in those early years. And I would say most families that encourage their athletes to go, it's because of that personal growth. aspect of it as well.
Yeah. I had some friends in high school who went, I think, after their, like right after they graduated is when they did mission trips, and then came back and like did their 4 years of college and whatnot. But it's so interesting. Is this something that, because you mentioned the men, the women will do this as well, or does that differ?
They do, but in our church, it's more of, it's not like a mandate. It's always a suggestion, but I would say it's highly suggested for the men and not as highly suggested for the women. And so I would say not as many women leave on mission trips. Some do, though. We've got 2 that are leaving after this semester. So on the women's side.
Interesting. How does that impact like team culture with people kind of coming and going, or, you know, just juggling that a little bit?
Yeah. It definitely is different. I would say that I have to be really focused as a coach on maintaining the culture, because if I'm not on top of it, like week to week, what I'm trying to create, especially as a new year rolls over, you don't have as much of that like long-term leadership that's consistent, right? Like you have 4 years of solid one person, you know, growing. A lot of times they'll go and they learn a lot on their mission. So then they come back and they're great leaders. But they might be new to some of the people on the team. So it's a little bit of a different dynamic. However, I feel like they're very mature. So it works out really well. But we have to stay on top of our culture for sure. As a staff, we have to not just talk about it, but consistently reinforce what we're trying to create. So.
And with this like religious factor as part of like the identity of the college and a lot of these kids, is that a requirement when it comes to being a part of like BYU and being on the swim team? I was always curious. I wasn't sure.
So it's not a requirement for any of our recruits to be members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but I would say that they're going to athletes will feel most comfortable if they have some sort of religious background. They have to commit to living what's called an honor code. And that, you know, comes along with no drinking, no drugs, you know, things like that. So if they have a religious background and those are things that they tend to live by anyway, then they're going to be very comfortable here on our team, whether they're a member or not. The biggest thing that I suggest to our international athletes, especially, is it brings a lot of focus to your swimming to have, you know, these distractions. You're not allowed to drink on campus. Like, you don't have that distraction to worry about. So if you really are choosing to be in college athletics, to be an elite student athlete, and B, get a great education, like BYU is a great place for that, to get rid of those other distractions. So
that's that. I think Seamus touched on a question that I had. I've coached at a religious institution before, and I think it was kind of like the same mindset. Like, you don't have to be part of. I coached at a Lutheran school, and it was, you don't have to be Lutheran, but if you have some sort of religious kind of like at least background, it helps understand some of the things that we have to go through. And I think you touched being an international former student athlete. I think you touched on something that I kind of wanted to ask as well. I was like, how do you actively recruit international athletes, or since you have a little more of that background with the school, do you just wait for them to kind of like look for you guys?
You know, I would say it's very rare that I would have religiously diverse or members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints around the world that are as elite as I need them to be. It occasionally happens. Most of the international athletes that I'm recruiting are not members. And I'm kind of pushing that side of, you know, being able to focus on your swimming and education. And then also for international parents, it's a safe place to live because of the culture of the university. And so, you know, that's a huge advantage as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's funny that we dove right into that, but kind of wanted to start talking a little about your background. You swam for BYU and spent a lot of years coaching there, and then now as a head coach. Tell us a little bit about your history. How did you end up swimming, high school, college, and then going into coaching?
Yeah. I grew up in Northern California, near the Sacramento area. I grew up swimming for my mom in age group swimming. My mom was my coach. And, we drove 45 minutes to the pool every day with her as my coach. And we picked up, some of my teammates along the way. So it was a long car ride. And she frequently would talk about the set she was going to do that day or the drills she wanted to focus on. And so I think from a young age, I kind of had this foundation of love of swimming, just learning, the things that were important and the foundation that I wanted as an athlete. My mom was awesome, super loving, super supportive. When I was I think it was about freshman year, she decided she was going to retire and go back to school and be a nurse. And when that happened, I immediately, as a young freshman, you're thinking, oh, what's the big popular club team in the area that I'm going to go to, right? Well, before she told me that she was retiring, she actually went around and interviewed the club coaches in the area to find out which one she felt like would be a good fit for my personal development. And so she said to me, like, I want to leave this up to you, but here's what I think. I think Jeff Pearson at the Sierra Marlins, he was just starting Sierra Marlins at the time. I think he's going to be the best coach for you. So give it 6 months and see if it works. And then if you don't like it, you can decide to transfer to this other club that everybody was going to, and it immediately clicked and was the place for me. I knew that pretty quick. Right. So I swam for Sierra Marlins in club and qualified for 2000 Olympic trials after my senior year in high school. Went there. I was 12th in the 200 breaststroke. So felt like that was a pretty successful entrance into college. I would say Jeff probably hadn't thought I would choose BYU, for my education. He knew I was religious and that might be an option, but I think he really, he had put the idea of Alabama or ASU or some of these other schools in. And I went on trips and I actually really liked a lot of them. But when I went on my trip to BYU, I just felt like that was the place for me, as a person, all around. So went to BYU without any question whether that's where I was supposed to be or not. Got to train under Stan Crump, who was here for 30 years. When I graduated, I ended up coaching a little bit under him as well. And then under Tim Powers, who was the men's coach for, 30 plus years as well. So that's kind of where I got my start to coaching.
Did you always want to be a coach, or
not necessarily? Like I said, I loved swimming. And I loved, being involved in swimming, but I think I was pretty done when I was done with my college career. I was ready to move on and have a life. And, I had gotten married my senior year. So I didn't know it was in the cards necessarily. I moved away and did an internship in corporate wellness and realized how much I missed being around swimming. And so Stan Crump called me up and he's like, hey, I'm looking for a grad assistant. Do you want to come back and help out? And so I did. And, it really was an ideal situation for me because I had 4 kids. I have got four kids during that stage of working underneath Stan Crump and Tim Powers. And it was a part-time gig, and I was able to be a mom and raise my kids and learn swimming all at the same time. It really was ideal for me. I know a lot of women get pushed out of the sport because of the demand, and they really supported me in being a mom as well. And I felt like that was very authentic to what I wanted. So,
well, I think you knocked 3 of my next questions in one answer now. I was going to ask, some of your coach mentors and what influenced you to become a coach. Just you mentioning that your mom was also a coach. Do you think that had a little bit to do with the career path as well?
Yeah, totally. And just another story that kind of prefaces like why she did what she did is she actually got pregnant as a high school senior. She wanted to swim for BYU. And she got pregnant with my older sister, and that kind of took away her dream, like she never really got the opportunity to see out her swimming career in college. And so I would say a little bit vicariously, she lived through me and wanted me to be able to pursue whatever I wanted through swimming. And so, when I chose BYU and came back to BYU, like she never pushed me to do that. It just all happened the way it needed to. And, being able to make the choice to do college swimming and have that opportunity was huge for my family in general. So
what's a coaching quality that you admire about your mom?
Oh, she would see the individuals that maybe, some coaches had a hard time seeing. You see the elite athletes on a club team, they're the easy ones to pay attention to. But she would find a way to connect with the athletes that were struggling or not developing, and she would help them develop. She didn't allow kids to kind of like fall under the radar.
Yeah.
Interesting. When you when you started as a grad assistant, what are some of the biggest differences from the BYU team there? Or I guess even before as an athlete, what are some of the biggest differences from the BYU swim team back then to what, you kind of helped shape throughout a couple of years and now is, in the position of leadership, like taking the full lead on what the culture becomes?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I swam at BYU, the men's and women's teams were totally separate. So I would say that's the biggest thing. In 2009, they combined the programs under one head coach. And I think in that transition, the women's team lost a little bit of their identity. When I swam, we were, fairly dominant in our conference and sending athletes to NCAAs most years. And then, it took a little bit of a turn when they combined the programs to where it took some time to get back to that on the women's side. Men tend to have a little bit more dominant personalities and be vocal about what they need and want. And the women kind of took a role that took a little while for them to build that leadership in what we wanted to get back to that NCAA level. I would say that's been one of my main goals as a head coach, is just trying to get that women's team back to national relevance.
I mean, you guys are making a lot of noise. I saw the dual meet that you guys had a couple weeks ago. That looked a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Kyle was there, right?
Yeah.
And how is that playing out? Like as a head coach, like are you actively pursuing opportunities like that? Like I think you're doing a tremendous job. Like just I'm always on Instagram, so I always see something BYU, like coaching staff or the program or someone talking about it. Like definitely building a lot of momentum with fast swims, but also like making it, making us aware that it is a fun place to be, that you're going to swim fast and have some fun. What's the strategy there?
Oh, you know how it is. There's a lot of strategy there. But I would say, at the core is helping the athletes love the sport of swimming and choose swimming every single day, right? Like, I think it's easy when you've been in the sport for a long time to feel like you owe the sport doing it, right? Like, it's up to these athletes to choose every single day. Like, I choose swimming, I choose this hard practice, I choose this process, and it's hard. But I'm becoming the person that I want to be through the sport of swimming. And, I think if they love it and if they can enjoy being here every day, then they're a lot more likely to have the success that you need. So I think that's kind of the foundation of culture that we're kind of trying to stick with. And then obviously like talking about and thinking about and not giving up on the fact that we want to be at the top of the Big 12 and we want to have national relevance and have athletes qualify for NCAAs every single year. So try not to be afraid of that. Like, that's a challenge, and we're going to make it happen.
For as far as the kind of coaching environment goes, I guess I'm curious. I've been a college coach before. I mean, so is Zhao. It's very demanding, and I think that's no secret. So how do you, because you talk about wanting to create an environment where people want to swim and they want to work hard, and part of that is like enjoying the sport, having fun. So how do you do that as a coach, like, and within a coaching staff where you're kind of putting out fires all the time and trying to provide for a combined program and do the best you can? Like, how do you guys have fun on a day-to-day?
I think energy and vibe can go a long ways. So, starts with music a lot of times, or the games that they're playing on deck beforehand. We'll do some fun reaction type games, especially with our sprint groups at the start of practices, just to kind of help the energy be positive at the start.
Yeah.
I think that goes a long way for athletes. If they can come in and maybe they've had a tough test that they just finished, and then they walk on the pool deck and they're playing a reaction game with the tennis balls that is fun, it can change their whole mood and get them ready for a practice, So that's just a small thing, but I think building the relationships amongst their teammates as well. If they have people that they want to go see and be around, that makes it really easy for us. I like to make it kind of a fun competition. We, track results if we're doing fast stuff off the blocks, or try and put them up on the blocks and race each other, make it as much fun as we can as well.
Yeah.
How is it? I know we had a couple of female head coaches as well. How is it leading a program of that caliber in a very male dominant environment, especially with like all the changes coming up, like with all the college sports changing right now? How is it having to impose your voice and be part of those conversations in a room that sometimes might be, you might be the only female in the room?
Well, my mom was a great example to me. I remember at a young age, like her, coming home and saying, they're not listening to me. I know this person should be on the relay or whatever, whatever it was. And she owned it. She owned the story of the athletes that she was fighting for, and had the confidence to be able to use her voice as needed. I would say I'm a little bit more of an introvert, so I'm really good at listening first and foremost. I don't tend to speak up until I feel like I've kind of internalized all the information, and then when I feel a little bit more clear on things, then I will speak up. But I would say just owning the confidence of I'm here for a reason, and I really feel like God prepared me to be here at the right time and for the right reason.
Interesting. Do you think so you went to Dixie State for about 4 years?
Yeah.
And it was just a only girls team, right? What are the biggest differences there? Like all girls and both combined?
Well, I think all girls, it's really easy to get to know your athletes on a one-to-one basis. Like you have the time to meet with each girl for an hour, every other week if you need to or whatever. And it's a smaller program, so less to worry about. That's one thing that I feel like I've a little bit underestimated as a head coach of a 60 athlete program is so much of my time is used talking to athletes and walking them through, their problems, not just swimming, but life in general. I probably could take 20 hours a week doing that if needed. They're always in the office, lingering, wanting to chat, wanting to talk through the relays, wanting to talk through, am I going to be able to make NCs? All these things that it adds up. And I think a bigger program, it's a little bit harder to get to know every athlete. And I try really hard, but I also hired a great staff for that reason, because I needed people that I knew would also help build those relationships. So that's probably the biggest difference from Dixie State to BYU. But also, if I hadn't have taken that Dixie State job when I did, I probably wouldn't be here. Like, I learned so much in such a short period of time because it was a new program. Like, there were only, I think there were like 14 or 15 girls when I got there on the team. They were building a brand new indoor 50-meter pool. They were transitioning from Division II to Division I, like, and going into the WAC. So it just was so much that I was able to learn and absorb and drink from that fire hose that a lot of coaches talk about, you know, on a smaller scale before I did it on the bigger scale in the Big 12.
Yeah. I've been there. Beautiful facility.
Yeah.
We actually raced the conference. I used to coach at Concordia University in Irvine.
Oh, yeah.
And we had conference at that indoor facility.
Yeah, it's so pretty.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah. It's a really beautiful campus as well. I mean, Utah is beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do want to come visit you guys at some point. I'm here in California.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks so pretty. Like, the pool just looks awesome, fantastic. So
Yeah,
I definitely want to make my way up to come visit at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell us a little bit about that transition period, just bringing it back a little bit from athlete to coach, and then obviously, you know, being at BYU for so long. What are some of the things that you still take, like some of the culture things? And it could be as simple as this one, you know, set that we used to do that we just keep it a tradition. Tell us a couple of the things that you keep, some of the things that you definitely had to change, in that sense.
Well, it's funny because when Stan Crump was recruiting me, he came out to Sierra Marlins, and the day that he came and watched my practice, we did 10 200s on 330, all out off the blocks, you know. And man, talk about killer set. I think the girls on the team hated me for that because he brought it back and we did it every year, every Christmas training. And as a coach, I would say my philosophy is a lot different. I grew up swimming for Sierra Marlins. We did quite a bit of yardage growing up. And I think my challenge to myself has been to help athletes live long-term in the sport. And I think by trying to minimize not necessarily just the yardage, but just making it quality, it keeps the kids in the sport longer. And so, you know, I would say the whole idea of the 10 200s off the blocks was great because we had, you know, you get certain amount of points if you're within 5 seconds of your best time. You get, you know, a little few points if you're 8 seconds from your best time. So I like to create a lot of point system racing, you know, just to like take their mind off the time, but like make it fun and engaging. So I get my teammates frequently asking if we still do 10 200s. And I'm like, no, you guys, we train totally different than that nowadays. So that's something we kind of got rid of, but evolved really, because I think just having fun in competing is where the underlying principle was there. But as far as like traditions, you know, we do a pentathlon every year. Like everybody races either a freestyle pentathlon or an IM pentathlon. Trying to think what else. You know, one thing Tim Powers frequently did was 3-man relays. Every single Monday morning they would do free 3-man relays. We don't do it that often, but doing relay exchanges, just kind of making it fun is a big part of it too.
What's your training kind of methodology based out of, would you say, at this point now when you're like season planning and getting into the weeds of it? Talk about, you know, the quality work that you're looking to accomplish. Maybe what does like a week look like for BYU?
It kind of has evolved, and every year it evolves, but right now, I would say we put a majority of our focus on like Mondays are hard days, Wednesdays are hard days, and Fridays are hard days. You know, mornings, that means we're doing, you know, towers and some power work. Monday afternoons, we're usually doing, 50s off the block, front end 100 work. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays are a little bit more skill driven and recovery, especially for the sprinters. For our distance kids, they might get up into that threshold zone a little bit more often. And then Wednesdays is a little bit more 200 based for our strokers. I coach the IMers and breaststrokers, so I guess this schedule is a little bit more IM and breaststroke based.
Sure.
So 200 practices, we're going maybe up to about 1,000 yards of quality pace later in the season, but that's usually built up. And I don't do a lot of like 200 straight, right? Like 50s, 75s. Occasionally at the beginning of the year, we might do some 100s. And, it's a little bit more rest than what I used to do growing up, and making sure that every repeat is quality, that they're hitting pace. They know what it feels like. They know what their stroke count is. And then Fridays, we usually go off the blocks, racing, lactate type sets. So a little bit different every day.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things you mentioned there briefly. Like, I struggle as a coach. I swam at LSU 2014 to 2018. It's not that long ago, but sometimes I look at what they're doing now and I'm like, oh man, you guys have it so easy. We used to do this and that. And I always wonder, like, what's that going to look like 30, 40 years from now when and I'll probably still be coaching, and I look back and I'm like, hey, what are these guys doing? I'm a sprinter. Like, what are these guys doing? They're barely doing 25s or, but yeah, so that you mentioned, like it's a little more interval than I'm used to, but
yeah,
it changes, right? And where are you looking for that mentorship and like inspiration nowadays in coaching and seeking those new methods, or as a head coach, I've always spoke to friends about this. Like, it's probably so difficult as a head coach, as you mentioned, managing the student athletes, the schedules and the recruiting, 5 years in advance. And then at the same time, still evolving and learning, more science and physiology and all of that. What are some of your strategies there?
So about a year and a half ago, I started a women's summit of NCAA women's coaches. And, we took that from Jill Teeter, and she started a summit years and years ago of women's coaches. So we have a group of about 10 to 12 women all around. We've got someone that coaches at Stanford and Missouri State, and we've got all over UCSB. So all over the country, we get together monthly and chat ideas. So we'll float ideas to each other. I would say my staff right now, like, we're still fairly new as a staff. Like, a year and a half isn't a lot of time, right? Like, we're still learning together and finding our groove. And so I would say I love collaborating with the staff that I have. Something unique about BYU, because we are a religious institution, like, our coaches are all religious individuals. And so, when I went to go hire, it's a little bit different of a process. I'm not, looking at the college coaches across the country that maybe have the most experience. It's looking at club coaches that are religious, that are willing to transition to college. And so I still feel like, they're learning a lot. I'm learning a lot from them, from their perspective, and it's been a lot of fun collaborating with the group of coaches that we have on deck.
Interesting.
Awesome. Do you, since you're just started, like, your head coach stint, are you still in charge of all the workouts, or do you allow them to?
Last year, a little bit more. I would say I let go of a little bit more each year, or maybe even semester or so. At the beginning, I was writing a lot more of the workouts. I would say the biggest piece of the puzzle for me was finding that sprint coach that I could rely on and that I trusted. And, because I love coaching sprint. Like, I wanted to do it, but I also felt like the breaststrokers didn't want me to leave them in a way. So now that we kind of have that piece secured, and then we've got some great other coaches that help support, both of us and the distance side of things. It's a little bit easier for me, I guess, to let them write more and more workouts. I don't do a whole lot with the distance program. I kind of let Christian Hanselman, he's been at, Carmel and a bunch of bigger programs. So I kind of let him run with it, which has been great. So yeah, I still write, I don't know. I think I write like maybe 5 of the workouts during the week, mostly the breaststroke and IM stuff. So.
Do you adapt like practices on a day-to-day depending on how the athletes feel or look, or is it something where you want to stick to what you have kind of regardless and just follow a plan?
I would say that's one of the tricky things as a coach, right? Is learning how to adapt to the individuals based on the feedback they're giving. Some of that comes with building trusting relationships, and once you trust an athlete, it's a little bit easier to trust that what they're saying is actually how they're feeling, and that they're not overreacting on something, right? We have a great strength coach, though, and he tests their vertical jump every Monday. And then we go through every athlete individually with our trainers as well, just every week, making sure, he'll let us know that it's a down week for them. We might give them a day off or back off on the intensity of a workout for them. Or, if they're struggling with injury, then our trainer will let us know and back off there as well. So, yeah, we definitely adjust. We try and make it somewhat individualized. We don't have like one track for our athletes. Like, you're not sprint, middle distance, or distance, right? Like, we do event days is what we call them. So Monday afternoon, we have 100 fly group, 100 back group, 100 breast group, and a 200 free group. And each coach is kind of assigned to that group throughout the year. So they do the season planning for that. They kind of take charge of the season planning for that group. And it stays the same coach. And then Wednesdays, we have 200 breast, 200 back, 200 fly, 500 free, and then 50 free. So depending on the athlete, they kind of have a different track throughout the week than any other individual on our team. So I do feel like it's very individually based, which works for us. Yeah.
I like that.
I think a lot of programs are doing that, the event route. I think that probably got a little messed with this year with the whole NCAA changing their
totally did.
So lost. This past week I was watching the event and I was like, and I always have it in my head. I'm like, okay, like today is 200 medley relay, 50 free tomorrow. Like, and then I started like swapping in between ACC and SEC. And then there's like, wait, why are they doing the 4 a.m. today? That's not until, and so it's just like so confusing because some conferences did it, some conferences didn't change anything. What's the Big 12 doing?
We're sticking with our normal. We just felt like as late in the season as it came out, it wasn't worth it to change it this year. So,
but probably gonna play around with it.
But yeah, our workout schedule might change next year based on the new event schedule. So
yeah. Do you guys usually, how many international students do you guys have?
I think we have 8 right now. So
do you usually work with federations and preparing them for national meets, or they don't?
Yeah, I'm going to German nationals with Peter Etzold in April. And yeah, we're always prepping somebody. We've got Diego Camacho, who swims for Mexico. He's our pro right now that we've got practicing with us. So we're always preparing somebody for their national meet somewhere around the world.
So you have a group training over the summer as well. Do they usually stay, or?
Yeah, we have about 20 to 30 of them that will stay, just depending on the year. Olympic year is a little bit bigger, but we've been trying to increase that, making certain requirements. This year we're going to try something new. Our athletes haven't really heard about this yet, so maybe this will be eye-opening for them. But if they don't stay here on campus, then we're going to give them, a junior cut that they've got to hit while they're gone, training with their team in one of their off-season meets, just so that we know that they're working towards something, and that will kind of allow us to categorize them for their mid-season meet next fall.
Interesting.
So. Yeah, I meant to ask this earlier. So if the athlete decides to take their trip in the middle, right, of their college season, and are they allowed to come back and be part of the team right away, or do they have to follow certain?
No, we encourage most of the athletes like leave in May as soon as the year is over, and then they're gone for 2 years exactly. And then when they come back from their mission, they're usually back in May again if they left in May, and they have the summer to prep and get ready for the fall. So that's our suggested timeline for them. Some of them end up not leaving until like July or August, and that just makes it a lot tighter getting them back into shape. But I would say most of our athletes, especially the men, are going best times by mid-season.
Wow. Is it mostly like a gentleman's agreement of like, hey, come back in shape, or
you know
like
what?
as far as like having their spot on the team and
yes and no. Like it's kind of a gentleman's agreement. We don't technically they're opting out of their NLI and their scholarship, but our school has asked us to kind of hold to what we promised them. So we usually do that as long as they come back and train and prove that they're committed to it. Yeah, that's what we do.
Are you guys allowed to like send in workouts or stay in contact, or not really?
So we can stay in contact a little bit. I try not to distract them. I just feel like they have a higher purpose when they're gone. So I usually send, maybe 3 or 4 update emails throughout the season, just letting them know where the team's at, what they're doing. They're actually only allowed 30 minutes of exercise time a day when they're gone. Wow. And they're not allowed to get in the pool ever.
Wow.
So most of what we're suggesting is like mobility and dry land type work.
Why can't they swim?
Perfect taper for a sprinter.
Yeah, it is perfect taper for a sprinter. As far as not swimming, I don't know. That's just been kind of the rule. I think when you have 20,000 18-year-olds around the world serving a mission, the church it's a little bit easier to maintain safety, not allowing them in bodies of water, because some of them are serving in Fiji and they're in countries all over the world. So I think that's just a safety thing.
I gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah.
As I'm curious, as a coach, what are some of your favorite like moments that you've presided over, either at BYU, Dixie State? Just like memories that will last like forever.
I've got a lot of really good ones, but I would say at Dixie State, we just had a really great group of athletes who, stepped it up and did really well in the conference. Like we were we were predicted to be like 5th in the conference, and we ended up being 2nd, 3 spots above where we were predicted. So that was special, like team wise. Mm-hmm. Last year at NCAA's, Mackenzie Miller didn't even make NCAA's 2 years ago, and then she ended up getting 2nd last year in the 200 breaststroke. That was a pretty special moment. Just watching somebody who, changed their mindset and went all in on being committed in and out of the pool, and it paid off. Like those are always the moments that you love. And then this year, probably our women beating Utah for the first time in 13 years.
Wow.
That was pretty special because it was a team effort. It wasn't, one superstar doing everything. We needed every single girl on the team to make it happen. So that was fun.
And that was home?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's exciting.
That was our meet where Kyle Sokol was there.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun.
So cool.
No, it looked super fun. I mean, I just saw the videos and all.
It's a rivalry. It's a rivalry that you not many people get to see or experience. And I have huge respect for the Utah coaches. They're doing a great job, and it's always it's hard to know who's going to win on any given day. Who's going to step up and race their best. So it's fun.
Yeah, I think you said it there. Like, that's to me the beauty of collegiate swimming is that it's a team environment, and like you said, you need it required the whole team to secure a victory, to get a win, and it's really not like you can't pinpoint one individual. It's like everyone has to step up, and I think that's where, it's like swimming can kind of be at its best when it's in that team environment. It's pretty selfless, which is really cool.
And one more experience that I just keeps popping up is we had a girl last year. She had a bulge disc and just really struggled, and we totally took a different route. And I would say this is memorable for me because I learned so much. We decided for her to do all of her aerobic training in the weight room on the bike and treadmill. And, so she only did about 3 to 8 hours in the pool, training wise. And we got to Big 12s last year, and she, went 5,300 fly, went best time. So for me, that's very memorable because, that's what gets your brain clicking as a coach. Like, how little can we do and still be successful? Like, it's one of those experiences. She blew my mind out of the water. I had no idea what to expect. And she totally performed. And so then you start wondering, okay, what else can we adjust and change,
Yeah. I'm learning a lot of that specific example right now. I mean, I'm a sprinter. I'm basically a sprint coach. And I always try to think of like the most disruptive way, but like also like, yes, I can text Cam McAvoy and ask some things, but at the same time, like when you're talking about college swimmers, is like you said, sometimes you got to get up on a dual meet and do 3 events in less than 2 hours, and the team needs the point. So there is a certain element that it's not just copy and paste, right?
Totally.
Like college swimming, you need to get to that last day of a meet and be able to do 3 100 frees if they don't change the schedule. But it's those little things play a massive like role into like college coaching, because you got to learn, but you got to adapt, right, to the team that you have, and the 20 hours, the NCAA 20 hours, and all of that, right? So
I like to think of myself as a scientist in a way, right? Like, I'm coming up with an idea, let's test it out. I hate that sometimes the athletes are the ones that suffer when we don't do the best for them, as a coach. But I also think when you have an injury, it forces it upon you, and then you have to learn no matter what. So I love it. That's the part of the sport that I love, is learning and changing and growing and trying new things. I don't want to do the same thing the next 20 years. So let's have fun figuring out how to make it better.
Agreed.
Yep.
I have a good question segueing off of that. So we have a sponsor on the podcast. It's a company called SwimSmart. You may have heard of them. They put out some really great products and a pretty informative book, The Biology of Swimming. Just helpful for young coaches and anyone who's interested in learning more about swimming. So based off of that, the question is, what does Swimming Smart mean to you?
I would say that swimming smart starts with believing that you can do what you want to do. I don't think you're going to accomplish anything if you don't believe in the program that you're working with, the coaches that you're working with. Belief is probably the key ingredient to swimming smart, in my opinion.
Yeah. So self-belief and believing in everything around you.
Yep. We have the opportunity at BYU to work with some pretty great mental performance coaches, and they've made a huge impact with our team in, helping create that self-belief in our athletes on a day-to-day basis, showing up to practices and asking them what they call a 3-to-1, 3 things that they did well that day and 1 thing that they can do better the next day. And if you do it every single day, then it changes the pathways in your brain, and it starts to help you believe in what you're doing.
Oh, I like that. The 3-to-1. Yeah.
I wrote it down.
Use that. Cool. Tamber, we're coming up on our last question. Are you a fan of a get out swim? And if so, do you have a favorite Get Out Swim story?
Yeah, 100% I am. I've got two, if you don't mind me sharing both. One was me as an athlete. I told you guys about going to Olympic trials going into my freshman year. So I finished Olympic trials and moved to BYU the next week. And I think a few of my teammates were maybe a little more out of shape than I was at the time, just because of that transition. So you hit mid-October, everybody knows college season, mid-October is like painful, right? Like you're sore, you're tired, you're exhausted. You don't necessarily want to practice that day. We show up and half the girls on the team were like in tears before the workout even started. And the head coach says, okay, we're going to do a Get Out Swim today. Everybody gets in and does a meet warm up, and Tamber's got to go senior national cut off the blocks, 200 breaststroke. I'm like, what? Like, so I have girls saying, I'll make you dinner for a week. Like, come on, you can do this. You know? Get up there and go 217, 200 breaststroke, you know, off of a dive. And probably one of the best feelings, you know. That's back in the days when we didn't have a dolphin kick off every wall. So anyway, that's probably one of my core memories, even as a swimmer, just special moment. A couple years ago as a coach, we have a sprint flyer. His name's Tanner Edwards. He's on our team again this year. He's, you know, great sprinter, great 100 flyer, never really swam the 2 fly. He was begging for a Get Out Swim all week. And I think finally one of the coaches said, fine, you can do the 2 fly. This is long course practice. And he gets up and, you know, I think he goes 26, 30, 36, 42 or something by and just flat out dies and was pretty much vertical by the end of the race. Needless to say, he didn't get the actual Get Out Swim time.
Oh, God.
He relived it this year and actually asked to do a 200 fly in one of our meets and broke 2 minutes. So we were pretty proud of him.
Wow.
Major improvement.
That's not a true sprinter. A true sprinter would not ask to do that.
Yeah, I know, that's true, right?
That's funny.
Yeah,
it's a courageous sprinter, though. That's what
yes, very courageous for sure.
Every once in a while, I do a lot of clinics. Every once in a while, you get in, like, you try to scare the kids when they're like 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds. You go, hey, if we don't pay attention, everybody's doing a 2 fly. There's always that one kid that goes, all right, I want to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, what? Like, some quick kids are just like, what are you doing? Like, I actually had a kid ask me once in a clinic, like, what's your 200 fly time? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I've never done it. And they like, the look on their face is like, what do you mean you've never done it? And I'm like, I just never done it. And they're like, but everyone has to do it. I'm like, nope, never did it. Never will do it. Don't know what it feels like. Cannot coach a 200 fly. It's like, they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah. But I mean, props to, like, I feel like it is such a college thing and club thing in the US, like that culture of just like do all the events, try it out, or step up for the team. I think going back to, like, it's like a culture thing for each team. Like a lot of teams like really like influence kids to, you know, not be afraid, and I think that's a great thing, actually.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. Coach, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. It's been awesome. Good. Best of luck this week.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited to watch you guys race another week of racing. My wife is not a swimmer, and so last week I had like 3 TVs going on my iPad, and I'm like, and she's like, can we go to dinner? I'm like, just one race. So I'm excited to watch a little more swimming this week. Excited to see you guys swimming fast. But yeah, thank you so much for spending time and telling us a little more about BYU and your journey.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome.